On behalf of the board, I welcome all members of the audience to this afternoon's meeting. This meeting is a working session of the board to conduct the business of the district. The agenda for today's meeting has been published, and the agenda items to be discussed and or voted on have been studied by the board members. I would like to introduce the people here on the dais with me. To my far left, Recording Secretary Cindy Benson, Superintendent Larry Francois, board members Kimberly D'Angelo, David Kogan, Sandy Hayes, and Ken Smith. I'm Amy Cast, and I currently serve as president of the board. Agendas for this meeting, as well as minutes from our previous meeting, are available on the table at the back. If you're here to address the board on agenda items, please sign in on the clipboard that is on the table with the agendas. You will have an opportunity near the beginning of the meeting for your comments. First order of business is the superintendent's report.
Good afternoon, welcome everyone. I just want to inform the board that we have had representatives from OSPI on site and in schools today conducting our consolidated program review, or in our acronym-filled world, what we know as CPR. So CPR is a process that occurs every 5 years where districts receive compliance monitoring on a wide range of federal and state programs. The monitoring includes desk reviews of district documentation that's been submitted over the past several months, an entry and exit conference today with relevant district staff, and compliance visits to a number of schools and programs. It's a very intensive process, and it involves many in the district who prepare for the CPR, but I especially want to acknowledge and thank Director of Intervention Services Janelle Finney, who's been the district lead in preparing for the CPR today and for today's on-site monitoring by OSPI. We look forward to receiving accommodations, which we've already received several today, as well as some suggestions for improvements to assist our work across a range of programs as we move forward. I also want to acknowledge and congratulate Bothell High School students Katie Hayward and Sejin Kim for their selection as National Merit Finalists. Finalists were chosen on the strength of their PSAT scores, placing them in the top 15,000 of all students nationwide who took the PSAT. As finalists, Katie and Sejin will have the opportunity to apply for merit scholarships to further their education beyond high school. As I mentioned last time, on January 27th, I joined Puget Sound ESD Superintendent John Welch, Highline Superintendent Susan Enfield, and Seattle School District Superintendent Larry Nyland in a meeting with the Seattle Times editorial board. We discussed a wide range of topics, including the current legislative session, the McCleary Basic Education funding issue, the levy cliff, employee compensation and benefits, inappropriate use of local levies to fund basic education, teacher and substitute shortages, and charter schools. And I've already, since that meeting, seen one editorial around the topics that we discussed, or at least one of the topics we discussed. So hopefully the meeting with the editorial board was positive in generating that editorial on behalf of the Times. After that meeting on the 27th, I rushed back here and attended a presentation by Aiden Keys, who is a gender specialist, and he spoke to a group of district staff on transgender youth and considerations for addressing the unique educational and social emotional needs of those students. I couldn't stay for the entire presentation, but what I was able to stay for was very interesting and informative. Turnout was very good, all the way from teachers to building principals to district level administrators. Lots of good questions and interest by those in attendance, and I just want to acknowledge and thank Dr. Chris Bigelow, Director of Student Services, for arranging the presentation. On January 28th, I participated with our district team and our outside advisors as Ed Northwest shared the preliminary results of our 56 focus groups in our data analysis that they are conducting around our equity and diversity plan. Preliminary findings were categorized into 4 key areas, so high expectations and college readiness, diversity and welcoming environment, bullying and safety, and discipline. And as participants we were divided into 4 teams, each of us with one of those topics, and then spent time in those teams processing the preliminary findings to begin making meaning out of the information in the data. Ed Northwest will return after midwinter break. They're continuing with the work on their end, so this was just a very preliminary look at the information and data, and they'll now begin to refine the presentation of the data, and we'll begin receiving district reports around the end of February. Given the sizes of the individual focus groups, we discussed the need to aggregate the findings, perhaps regionally or by level, rather than on an individual school basis as we had originally hoped, just because some of the focus groups, none of them were larger than about 15, but some of them were as small as perhaps 5 or 6 or 7. On January 31st and February 1st, I attended the Wassa Wasda Wasbo Legislative Conference with Directors Hayes and Smith. We had a full slate of sessions on Sunday afternoon, including presentations from Tom Ahern, the lead attorney for the News Coalition, a panel discussion from the WASDA and WASBO executive directors. Superintendent Dorn had some brief comments, and an interesting presentation by State Treasurer Jim McIntyre on a tax and funding proposal he has created. And then Dan Steele and Jessica Varvas, governmental relations staff of WASA and WASDA respectively, kind of prepped us all for our meetings with legislators on Monday. We were able to meet for at least a few minutes and sometimes as much as 30 minutes with each of our 9 local legislators on Monday, together in many cases with our counterparts from Shoreline, Lake Washington, and Riverview school districts. I left each legislator a copy of the communication I'd sent them following our fall meetings and just prior to the start of session, because I knew they'd need a refresher perhaps, given the hundreds of emails that they received. And we continue to talk around the issues of compensation and levy reform, the levy cliff, state assessment, and teacher substitute shortages. I wouldn't say I left any more encouraged than I came, but I thought we at least had very reasonable conversations with all of our legislators. February 2nd, attended the school improvement visit at Frank Love with Directors Cass, Smith, Kogan, and Hayes. Truly appreciated the collaborative presentation by co-principals Jonathan Aldenese and Sonia Hoft. And even in the midst of 330 kindergarten students and 760 total students, intentional work is taking place to identify and address the learning needs of individual students through a wide range of intervention programs and services. And despite the large number of students, the orderliness and the calm of the school was impressive, and that's certainly a testament to the work of the entire Frank Love staff to make the best of their less than ideal circumstances. On February 4th, we continued our diversity and equity training with Dr. Caprice Hollins. This was training for our instructional leaders, and it focused on the exploration of our core values and the deeper needs that sometimes interfere or conflict with those core values. And in particular, we explored how those deeper needs manifest themselves when we are interacting with those of a different race or a different background than our own. I have read for each of the trainings with Dr. Holland, each of the evaluation forms that are submitted, and we're getting a really good return on submission of evaluation forms. I would say at least 3/4 or more of participants are filling those out. And so I read each of them very carefully, and I can verify that the feedback from our building and our district leaders is very positive. They're finding the work valuable. They're gaining a lot of perspective, awareness, and reflection that they're applying in their work and their lives. So that's, I think, exactly what we would hope to be seeing. And then finally, last Saturday, February 6th, I attended the North Shore Schools Foundation holiday celebration with all of the members of the board and our respective spouses. It's always an enjoyable evening to spend. This is the 5th, 4th, somewhere around there, one of these events. And just continue to appreciate the foundation board who works so hard to raise funds in support of our students, teachers, schools, and programs. The white elephant gift is always fun. We left with exactly what we wanted to. And I was particularly pleased not to go home with a live fish. So, and now I think we're going to do a little bit more business with the school's foundations.
Indeed. Thank you, Superintendent Francois. Next on our agenda is North Shore Schools Foundation Executive Director Carmen Dazel will present the North Shore Schools Foundation Grant Award.
So thank you very much for taking your time to share that little party with us. We think it's a really fun way to build a relationship that says, let's have fun for kids and see what else we can do for them. So thank you. But today, I'm really excited because today we're doing what we're really here for, and that is giving you money for kids. So on behalf of the over 1,500 supporters of the North Shore Schools Foundation and our board, all the people who think our students are number one, we are going to be presenting a grant for $64,733 for all students. So this donation represents dollars raised during our All In for Kids campaign, several community events including a Molvax Holiday Showcase, Mod Pizza Grand Opening in Lombardi's Something versus Something, all sorts of really great things, but it also represents the support of nearly 200 employees who designate the foundation in their giving as part of their payroll deduction, and about 100 of those are from this very school district. So we really appreciate that support, and we're very humbled that not only do we get to support, but we're also supported by this community. So thank you for that. Being a steward is an important thing. So we know that just like you know, what can we do that's best for the classrooms, and that's what these dollars represent for us. So granting from the foundation happens in a collaborative process. We get grant applications from the district staff, and then the board of our foundation reviews it, and then we approve the grants as being eligible for funding. Because of course we'd like to fund everything with all the dollars, but first of all, we have to say, does this fit within our values and our structure and what our mission is? So once they say yes, then we are available to move resources towards it. And that means that if the right person walks by and says, I was looking for something to give money to, I can say, what about this? So then during the granting cycle, we actually allocate the dollars that we have available to the grants. And it should be noted that the more we raise, the more we can allocate towards those grants. So as part of this granting process, this is really where our partnership comes in, because we really honor the priorities of the school board. So what school board goal does this grant represent and support is one of our primary questions. And then this year, we actually added a separate second, is it funny to see me nervous? That was kind of funny. Okay. A second criteria about the Danielson principles to say, you know, how are we affecting teaching and aligning with what's so important with the district? And so we think that's pretty cool. And I think that through that process, we're building a stronger team and educating in all different corners in all different ways. So we love that. So we do this twice a year. Twice a year, we give you a big check, once in the fall and once in the spring, and then we do innovative classroom grants, and that process is just about to kick out. And actually, we're excited because in our next steps, we're hoping to do classroom grants twice a year to allow us to be a little more nimble and support teachers. Some teachers might not be able to plan what they're doing in the fall while they're grading their spring things. Some people can, so hopefully we can find a way to have some more funds available and be able to expand our reach. So I'm going to take a few minutes and tell you how that $64,733 is being allocated. So, 18,000 of that is going to go towards our teachers and our teacher excellence process. So we continue to support National Board Teacher Certification. This is our sixth year of supporting this program as specifically requested by the school board. This is important to us, it's important to you, it's important to us, and we continue to stand by it even as the process changes. I have awesome detailed articles coming out of the foundation later with all the details you can read about it, but we love being part of that. And then we're also part of the Sound Discipline New Mentor training for teachers. So that's been fun. This year at our luncheon, you're going to hear some of the teachers that have been affected by that and had no idea that we were part of it, but we think it's kind of a big deal. And then in our newest category, career and college readiness, or not, because we just added that as our sixth priority, and I'm adding student leadership in that. We are supporting the Career and Leadership Day that's happening with Leota and Timbercrest, which is a really interesting joint venture. We actually would love to be behind all the career days, but only Leota and Timbercrest asked, because we get that question a lot. Why didn't you sponsor the other ones? They didn't ask. But we get to do that, and they do a good job of collaborating the classes together and saying, a bunch of 7th graders get to be together and they see each other again in high school, 8th and 9th graders again in high school. So that collaborative nature always serves. We're also really proud that Damon let us be part of CTE Night, which is happening tomorrow. I assume I'll see most of you there. If you have kids that are in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, be there because it is the highlight of some of our best district programs, of which I think the foundation has supported every single one with direct dollars. And so we're happy to be there, and there's a really great speaker, so if that's not on your list, it should be. We're also supporters of all the student leadership groups at the high schools, and in reciprocity of them being involved with our All In for Kids campaign. And then this is our second year of our student scholarships. So again, during our luncheon, you'll be able to hear that fabulous speaker, who we don't know who is yet, share how the foundation is affecting their career. We're putting over $8,000 into STEM. We were really excited to work with Amanda Rainwater, who was able to go to a conference and find out about some heart valve engineering project that teachers figured out. How the original price tag was like $10,000, and some of the teachers figured out how to do it for $1,200, and Evergreen Health said, here you go. So that was really great, and that's going to be across all the junior highs. We love our participation in Math Olympiad, which is March 12th. This year we're going to be part of the registration team, and I just got a brand new trophy for it. Pretty excited. And then for once, we got a request for student supplies for our biomed students. For some of our students who are really excelling, but don't have the supplies and the money to actually pay for the supplies to compete in biomed. So how sad to be blessed with brilliance and not be able to have those resources. So we had a designated donor come up and say, yeah, we want to support our kids in that. And then our crowning event this year was our participation with Hour of Code. So through Foundation's promotion, I mean, I think there were lots of teachers that were participating, but we know over 180 teachers participated, exposing over 7,000 kids to Hour of Code. It was a great part of our partnership with our community, and we're really excited. We were grateful to have a sponsor step up and do that too for us. It was UI Evolution. I always think that, that's a lot of vowels altogether. But we were just so thrilled to be able to kind of support teachers, and the feedback is fabulous, and I will be sharing that with you once we can summarize it. And then in some of our old hat fabulous things that change lives is literacy and arts. So new classroom libraries are on their way for our brand new teachers, $15,000 to build those classroom libraries. We've been able to see them on some of our visits and sometimes not, but we're looking for them. And our board actually stepped up and said, what can we do to support kindergarten? We know that we've had so many kindergarten and students, so they said, here's another $2,500 just for kindergarten books. Just let's see what we can do to help them. So that was exciting. We also supported things like SAS Music Program continues to be a program that moves kind of through us. We get to help them. Lots of people love it. We funded them for years, so every quarter somebody decides that they want to support that. We're a proud partner with the district with Backpacks for Kids this year. So there's some dollars that came through that. And then there's just several other interesting Student of the Month. We're paying for PTA memberships from the foundation. And in a really unique partnership, Bothell Youth Court was picked up because it was one of those things that we said, yes, we can fund this, but we didn't have any designated funds for it. And Bothell Chamber said, we're looking for a program. So Bothell Chamber came up with over $3,000 in support of Bothell Youth Court, which never would have moved except for the fact that somebody asked and we were in the right place to make that happen. So we're really excited. So we are expected that this investment in students and teachers will support our shared goal that students achieve academic success and graduate future ready for whatever the future may hold. I am just thrilled to be part of the foundation. As I mentioned, I do want to share that we are announcing it's our 20th annual Innovative Classroom Grant Cycle, which means I have to do more press releases, but we are very excited about it. And one of the biggest changes is that this year secondary teachers can apply for $2,000 instead of $1,000. So we're just trying to be more nimble. That was in response to meeting with people, principals at the higher level saying, well, $1,000 is great, but a little more to serve more kids is going to make a bigger difference. So those are kicked off. They're on our website, and I have some at the back if anybody would like to apply for funds in the classrooms. It's there. And, oh, look, it stopped printing on page 6. This is my favorite page. We're also, on Friday, we're going to do is the last day for our student scholarship application. So students who are juniors or seniors are encouraged to apply for funds from the foundation. That application is on the Apply Here button at the foundation website. And I would be remiss unless I said, please take out your calendars. Make sure that you have noted that April 6th, we would like all of you to join us at the All In for Kids annual luncheon. It is sure to be a wonderful success, and we are very excited. So just as we give it away, we have to make it too, and it all is around and round and round. So it's my total pleasure and honor to be representative of the foundation. I'm grateful to be able to be in partnership with you, and I'd like to invite my presidents up to present an awesome big check to you. That's it.
Would you like all of this?
I don't know. You elect me. I love our pictures. I think we should all make it great, right?
That's not my job.
They have been negotiating.
We have agreement, that's not my
You guys
job.
want to stand in front of the podium, that way we don't have to move it?
Yes.
Okay, stand in front, wait.
Get in your positions. Sandy, your picture position.
Is there a rule? Do we have an order?
And apparently there's a side.
Oh, is there?
Works better than others.
Oh, do you leave?
No, but I'm ready to.
We could have stood. Oh, dang it, the thing left. Okay, so you have to hand that to Amy, because she's the queen.
Oh, I like that, Queen Amy.
Queen Amy. Diva is less.
Great. One more? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Take it.
You guys work so hard.
Oh, yeah. We appreciate it. I love the whole thing. Casey, that's it.
Thanks for coming.
I know, that's not my job. I had the weather.
So on behalf of the school board, I'd like to thank the school's foundation. The list of programs sponsored and supported and are allowed to grow because of your incredible hard work. It's really, it's beyond touching. So thank you very much for all that you do. We really appreciate having such strong partners and helping all our students. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Next on our agenda is Association of Public Comments. The North Shore School District Board of Directors has set aside a period of up to 60 minutes to receive updates and comments from association leaders and citizens from our community. The board expects speakers to address matters related to the district operations, policies, procedures, and agenda items under consideration by the board. Comments should not make reference to any employee or representative of the district by name or by identifiable reference. Board meetings are not the appropriate setting for personnel complaints. If interested, there is a complaint process available through the Office of the Superintendent. Please note that because of the public governance process, the board may ask clarifying questions regarding topics not on the meeting's agenda, but will likely defer discussion to a future meeting if warranted, in order for staff to prepare any necessary background information for board members to review and for the discussion item to be included on a published agenda for the benefit of other parties who may have interest in the topic. Alternatively, a district employee or board member may respond to individuals offering public comment at a later date if warranted to do so. When addressing the board, please state your name clearly for our records. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There's a timer that will sound when your time has expired. We thank you for your participation in the governance process. Are there any association leaders wishing to address the board? Sherry Rudolph.
Hi, I'm Sherry Rudolph, North Shore Council PTSA President. Sorry I missed you last meeting. I was moving. I moved from one part of the district to the other, so it's very time-consuming that I hadn't expected. So I'm glad to be here today. We went last week. I had the privilege to go with Director Hayes to Focus Day. Washington State PTA puts on Focus Day every year. Invites every PTA unit, local PTA in the whole state to come to Olympia and talk to our legislators. And we had appointments with all 9 legislators that serve our district, and actually some we met with twice, I think, which was a great compliment because I addressed them beforehand and said, we like that, we know you're busy and we like that you group us together with Lake Washington School District, but the conversation sometimes gets a little distracted to their bond and levy issue, and as a district that has passed ours every single time that I've been president, and I'm pretty sure every time we've had one, we would like to talk about some other things that are important to our district, and they answered that, so it was great. And we got to talk about some North Shore things, and they were very complimentary about our district, and they love to hear what we have to say. So it was great to hear from them. There's some exciting things going on from the legislators that serve our district, especially Representative Pollitt. And Senator McAuliffe is always great to hear some things that are happening, and she lets us know what's happening too. So we will keep you informed, and Sandy's always informed. So exciting things happening with our big group that went that day. I think we had close to 15 people, stopping in, coming, leaving early, because when you bring kids to Olympia, it's always an interesting experience. So we do have upcoming speaker series coming in Saving for College, which I know 2 of you already saw. Brooke Anderson, he's a Inglemoor and North Shore parent, and he's going to go over all kinds of things, get alternatives, what may or may not be right for you, just trying to get parents educated about what really is out there for us in Washington now to save for college. And also May 5th, I wanted you to get on your calendar. We also have a partnership to do a transgender informational speaking as well. Her name's Rosetta Lee. She's the outreach specialist for Seattle Girls School. She comes highly recommended. She has a whole list of talks, and so we're kind of going to pick and choose. It's Catherine from the Bothell King County Library. So we are partnering with King County Libraries as well as the district, and so we don't have the venue yet. Because that's about spring musical time. So we might end up at Inglemore, but we'll see. So yeah, we'll see where we can, what venue we can get. But yeah, we're very excited about that. Community Kitchen continues to just feed families in the district, which is awesome. She actually has openings for 3 to 4 more families that she's able to serve. We just finished our first year of our $4,000 grant from the city of Woodinville, so we're trying to spread more. We're partnered with Hang Time at Kenmore Junior High. We're doing the snacks for them, and also helping King County Library on their Wednesdays. They have 24 kids showing up for about 4 to 5 hours on Wednesdays, and we're helping with the snacks with that too. So just exciting things happening there, and also just the transition that's happening. It's kind of that calm before the storm, but Lake Washington School District, their council gave us so many great ideas of ways that we can build community with these schools, the different people that are going to come from different schools and we need to come together. And we kind of really are counting on that 6th grade year right now, because that'll be the only leadership left at that middle school. That'll be the board. So these current 6th graders, when the 2 move up to high school, that grade is going to be the lone PTA. So we're really trying to dig deep. We're getting our budget ready this next 2 weeks and seeing what we need to do, because right now membership is our only revenue. So Lake Washington also does more fundraising than we do, so got some ideas going that way, and we just never want to compete with our local PTAs in the fundraising piece. So we're going to try to see what we can do to get that community building ready for people that are going to do waivers, people that are going to change schools, and summer will be exciting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Any other association leaders? No? All right. So next up, Austina Devante.
Hello, my name is Austina Devante. I co-chair the North Shore High Cap Parent Advisory Board. I'm also president of the statewide organization Northwest Gifted Child Association. My goal is to continue educating the board on issues related to the Challenge Program. It appears I'm the only one here today. A couple others were hoping to be here, but I think something must have happened. Didn't work out. You've heard pretty clearly over the past several months that the Challenge Program is working. Students are satisfied, parents are satisfied, and since its introduction in 2011, key school board success measures have improved. For instance, the participation rate of free and reduced lunch students has doubled since the start of the Challenge Program. This includes algebra by 8th grade and advanced AP and IB courses in high school. If Nancy was here, she would tell you more about that. So why are we still here talking about Challenge? I think actually the issue isn't Challenge. I think the issue is that we're worried that we're not doing enough for our struggling students, and somehow we're confusing the issue. If that's really the question, then I'd suggest that we actually focus our proposed solutions on that problem, if that's the problem we're trying to fix. There are lots of specific things we could invest in as a district to help our struggling learners. Here are some ideas. One, we could put more focus on programs in elementary to identify these kids earlier, provide supports earlier, don't let things fester, and make sure that we're really giving kids the absolute best chance before they get to middle school. Also, number 2, of course, we still need to provide targeted and intensive intervention for struggling learners in middle school. The AVID program is a really terrific model. As I've learned more about it in Lake Washington and Bellevue schools, I'm pretty impressed, and I think it would be something worth considering here. But I think the idea that could make the biggest difference is to fund a 7-period day in middle school, and I know this is something that the task force has recommended. Bellevue School District already funds a 7-period day in their middle schools and has for many years. It actually has several benefits. So one is it provides more space for elective classes for middle school students, which is a major IMLE recommendation. It encourages middle school students to explore more broadly in those middle years. 2, it provides more time during the school day to provide more directed support for struggling students without having to keep kids after school and without having to ask them to not get an elective in order to make space for that. And I think that's pretty important. And finally, a 7-period day provides teachers an extra prep time to enable the collaborative work and interdisciplinary teaming, which is another huge AMLE recommendation seen as essential in making an interdisciplinary block approach work for middle schools. Currently, teachers are in the classroom for 5 periods, have 1 period of prep with a 7-period day. Teachers would be in the classroom for the same 5 periods, but get 2 prep periods, which would make more time for professional development as well. The 7-period day was strongly recommended by the middle school task force. However, the cabinet deemed it as too expensive. The task force actually felt so strongly about it, they brought it back a second time, but were still told no. And so I'm here to urge the school board to actually reopen this conversation and to consider a 7-period day. And I think it would be actually more effective for the problem we're trying to solve and would help all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Austina. So that concludes public comments. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments on the consent agenda? No, seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is the first action item, the second reading of Board Policy Number 1711, Board of Directors Operating Protocols. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? I'll have my coffee.
So, I'm going to touch again on what I brought up last week regarding the social media protocol. We have an entire policy that we need to be following on the Open Public Meetings Act, and each part of that policy and protocol is important. One is not more important than the other. And I feel by bringing only one piece of the Open Public Meeting Act policies or tenets, whatever you want to call it, to light, that it's causing us to focus here when we could be missing just as important issues that don't have clarity and are gray and tenuous at times over here. I looked up board protocols in other districts and did not find that any district that I could find, and I didn't do, search out every district. I did not find any district that I looked at that identified specifically social media and or any other part of the Open Public Meetings Act. I did find a school district that said we will follow as a board the Open Public Meetings Act, and I can't remember which one that was because when I went back, I couldn't find the same policy. But I did pull up Auburn's here, and they make brief reference to it too. They say under their accountability that additionally each board member shall take the time necessary to understand the state laws and regulations and the district policies and procedures. And like I said, there was another district that said broadly, but I feel that by us taking only one piece of it and putting this in our protocol, that we're missing the larger piece of what we need to be doing, which is many different areas, including different things that we probably need to review. I'll leave it there.
So I'm just going to ask, do you have a proposal or just that you wanted to invite discussion?
So I wanted to invite discussion, a proposal, maybe I need to make a motion for this, so
Or we can just.
a proposal is that if we want to, have the agreement that we all are going to abide by the Open Public Meetings Act, is we can have some type of language like that in there and not make it specific to any one part of the Open Public Meetings Act. I think this is too prescriptive and we need to be looking at the whole And I understand why this came about, but again, we're a different board. I'm not seeing any other districts that are getting down to this level in any part of the Open Public Meetings Act in the protocols.
Just taking notes here.
But I know you've worked hard, Amy, and I appreciate that. And so,
So I'll add, I think, I find I'm supportive of all the changes except for 21. So I think one thought we could do just to facilitate the motion is to just perhaps extract 21. I would concur with having 21 limited to the Open Public Meeting Act in our communication. The other thing that I was reflecting upon was we don't really have kind of what we shall do. We've got the shall not here, but in terms of we've talked about doing coffee with the council, certain kinds of outreach. And so I think this notion of how we interact with the community, not just our communications among ourselves, but interaction with the community, is something that I think we can explore and discuss and augment. So one way to perhaps deal with this and be able to pass it tonight would be to either remove 21 or to shorten it just to say something about the Open Public Meeting Act, but then to say we'll move forward with looking into more details of how we want to work with social media and community outreach. We talked about like the coffee with the council and the blogging and other kinds of things. And so I think since it is an emerging area, I think we should continue to explore it and discuss it. I think it's useful, and if what I'm hearing from Vice President D'Angelo is the notion of mentioning the Open Public Meeting Act is fine for the policy, but not going into more prescriptive on any element of it. And then I would like us to kind of continue that discussion of the way in which we want to interact with the community. I think there's questions or concerns that we would want to try and find out the most effective ways to do that.
So just a point of clarification, the board retreat that we have in March will be focusing on how the board interacts with the community, whether it be through blogging and coffee hour options, whether it be kind of a larger question about community engagement. And so just so that is a board goal for this year, and it is something we will definitely address. I just wanted to.
So to that point then, to help facilitate the motion on the table, then I think since that's already there and there's nothing in here that's harmful to or a problem with, so I would be fine with that. And then so I would, I guess, ask to amend the motion to include an adjustment to line 21 that's just shorter, that just mentions the Open Public Meetings Act. I don't know if Kimberly, you had recommended language from someone else.
yeah, I just think if we're going to be prescriptive, it would be important to be prescriptive about all the different areas. And when I read the Open Public Meetings Act, it's not outlined specifically in that way. So I don't have, I'm comfortable saying, we have a responsibility to follow the Open Public Meetings Act, and we have a responsibility to understand it, and like you said, Ken, to keep continuing discussing it with emerging issues. And I intend to, hold myself accountable to this, so at any part of the Open Public Meetings Act. But they are emerging issues, and I think there's lots of areas, not just social media.
Right. So I'm hearing two things before we go forward with an official amendment. I hear two things: an idea of taking out the more descriptive language at the end that was basically added after the first sentence. But I also hear
Or keep the first sentence.
right. But I also hear something you said, Kimberly. It's about talking about all areas of the OPMA. So I hear kind of two different ideas. Is the language here focusing on social media is one thing, but perhaps we need to spend time talking in detail about other ways of how OPMA interacts. Just to frame the conversation, this is basically a document talking about how our rights, our responsibilities to the community as well as to each other. And so I think having a discussion about, as a board, interacting on social media is one thing, but because the Open Public Meetings Act does affect other things besides social media, if we need to have a discussion about OPMA in general, that is, I just want to follow up on that thought that you had, Kimberly. If the question is not just talking about social media, but maybe we need to document our understanding as a board about how we're going to operate within OPMA. Is that what I heard you say? Am I reframing that correctly?
No.
Okay.
But if others on the board feel there's a need to, I don't think that we should do it in one area. So that's what I'm saying. When I looked at, I probably pulled up 5 or 6 different board protocols, and I did not find any prescriptive language in those. Now, like I said, I didn't pull up every school district, but I pulled up the big ones: Tukwila, Auburn's I have up here, Centralia, which isn't a big one, but they were very prescriptive in some of their language, but not in that way. I couldn't find the Washingtons very easily, so I don't know why. But anyway, I did not find that level of detail, and not one person, not one district that I saw mentioned the social media. I don't mind the first sentence in there, because we do recognize that it's an emerging area. And I know, but I think all areas of the Open Public Meetings Act, we need to all be talking about this, and we should, have, every 6 months at a board retreat that we're reviewing or asking if there's questions, how do we hit reply on emails? Do we, the different areas that aren't thought about, or that emerge, or come new to new board members. So anyway, I don't think it needs to necessarily be prolonged, but I'm not comfortable with being prescriptive about one area. And I'm okay with taking 21 out or leaving it, having a further discussion like Ken said.
Just for clarification, process clarification here. So is there a motion to amend 21 to include the first sentence only?
So I would like some clarification, because prescriptive means saying you can or cannot do something, and I can't find that anywhere in here. So where in 21 does it say we can or cannot do something? Because my reading of it is just helpful understanding of how the law works. Can you point to where it prescriptively says you shall or shall not do something?
Well, maybe I'm using, the way I think of prescriptive is we're taking something that's up here and we're trying to make meaning of it, and we're prescribing what should or should not be done.
Right, that's
Okay.
exactly
And
what it says.
I read that, so while I respect your perspective, I read this differently.
So can you just show me where in here, because maybe that's all we need to fix, is where in here it gives a prescriptive should or should not do something, and that's what we need to fix.
First of all, I think as a school district, we're making an interpretation and putting this out there. This law has not been tested, and so passive receipt of information about school district business does not interfere with these regulations. I find the whole thing prescriptive. Cannot, like a post, but what I'm saying is more than that. It's a focus on one area versus a focus on every area of the Open Public Meeting Act. We have to follow all areas, not just one.
If I can, I think to answer that question, I think the prescription is creating a post, the verb creating, commenting, or affirming are all the things, and you shall not create a post, you shall not comment, and you shall not affirm support. I think one could read the language as here, that you shall be able to have passive receipt, but you shall not create a post, you shall not comment on another post, and you shall not affirm a post.
Okay, but it doesn't say that. It just says that it does interfere with the Open Public Meetings Act. It doesn't say you shall not do it. It's just informing us that this is how the Open Public Meeting Act works. And you could still choose to do whichever you want. It's just informing you that that would be interfering with that act.
So then I would suggest that we have an email section that says, not replying all, different things. I mean, again, that's another form, and we're not addressing that in this. And I'm okay with you guys keeping it in. I'm just not going to vote for it. But I will follow it. It's fair, is my point.
And that's not, I'm not concerned about that. I think for me, this, because I happened when we were in Olympia, I went to 2 different multi-district events, and this came up in both of them, having to do with how was the group going to operate and how do we operate within the world of social media without violating the Open Public Meetings Act. So this is the part of Open Public Meetings Act that is the issue right now, and we're all across Washington State in any government agency trying to deal with following the law in an area that is new. And the reason that it's being drawn out is in person. We've been doing that for 100,000 years, right? We've been interacting in person, and so it's very clear in the law how to interact in person. It's in this world of social media that is so new, and law is slower to catch up. And so all this is for me just a helpful understanding of how I can operate within the law in this very new world.
So,
It's just an opportunity for us as a
Yeah,
district
for
to
sure.
be a leader in this world.
well, and I have just a procedural thought, because I have, from my point of view, this has been a question that has been tricky for the board. And I think coming to a common understanding, no matter how it's worded, but coming to
Past board.
Well, no. Well, and like Sandy says, it comes up for a lot of boards. And I think the important point is to have a common understanding between the 5 of us about how we'd like to handle the issue. So, from a procedural standpoint, if we'd like to put forth an official a motion for an amendment, we can do that. If we want to continue discussing, maybe what might be other options for discussing social media and OPMA, whether it be within this board protocol policy, whether it be elsewhere, if we want to talk about that. I'd like to get a feel of where folks would like to, if we want to have a motion about a revision to number 21, and then go forth from there, perhaps that would be a good way for the discussion, or if we want to keep discussing as well. I don't know if my...
One thing as far as discussion, if we all are agreeing that we're going to abide by this process, I think that's one critical factor, and whether we have it in here or not is a second consideration. So if we're all in agreement that the spirit of this is something we're going to, not respond to, then I think that's the first question. Do we all agree that this kind of interaction violates OPMA?
Yes, and I think there's also tricky issues. And I think, like I said, via email, there's issues via these other avenues. And where I respect that it's in the face-to-face interaction is intuitive maybe for you, Sandy, it wasn't necessarily as much for me, because I still felt that there was a huge learning curve on passive receipt of information or a serial board meeting. That just wasn't obvious to me, and so I definitely had to have training and understanding, and that takes time to understand that process, because you do have to communicate in a different way than you're used to.
I wasn't clear that what I meant was in the area of the law, how we interact person to person is more defined.
In the
law.
Public Meetings Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a degree, but yeah, you're right, probably in legal cases that have been brought forth, yeah. So, but I'll just give a situation, that's why I don't like bringing it, I think it should be at a higher level, but also, there was a situation where there was a post by a community member on a Kenmore Neighbors page that had to do with the 405, nothing to do with school district, okay? I don't post comment very often, but I said, yeah, the traffic's really bad. Someone then brings that back to, I don't like early release Wednesdays, and I'm suddenly in that thread. Do you see what I'm saying? But my comment had nothing to do, and the post didn't start out with that. So why I feel this becomes so prescriptive is, I just feel it takes it to a level where board members are now not just being cautious, but being, at least for myself, And then for me, it's putting a focus too much there and not focusing on where I'm being balanced about it. And so, again, I just don't know, I feel that I agree with this, and in principle, I abide by it. Like, in my heart, I abide by it.
So,
I like what David said, and I liked what you had to say about this. We just recognize this is a continuous learning process for us, especially as this world continues to change and evolve. That I think if we just recognize it as a board, that this is something we have to constantly be being educated on.
for the sake of clarity, would be helpful for me to be clear about what I think I'm hearing everyone saying is our understanding as a board. Is that our understanding is reading on social media about school district business is understandable. We understand from our interactions with the district's council that reading is not a violation of OPMA. Okay, do I see at least?
Yeah.
Do I see a nod from Kim? Okay, all right. And where we did understand from legal counsel is that you would not comment or like a topic on school district business where a reasonable expectation of a quorum would be present. So that is, we all five have that same understanding, correct? That's what we were advised, and that's what we are going to, you know, as Kimberly points out, it's gray quickly sometimes, but that is our common understanding of what we would do. So the question,
Like anything that has to do with the school district, period, no matter what.
right, and so the question then it seems to be is how do we document that? What's the best way, you know, in an area where things are very gray, what is the best way of a board for us to have something to refer to in the future if a question arises so that we all have we can refer back to our common understanding? If it's this board protocol, is there another vehicle? Do we need a whole other I don't think we have a policy on board interaction with OPMA. Sounds pretty specific. I took a quick peek. I don't think we
I
do,
guess
but
the
it
board
might-
recognizes that social media is a public forum and all Open Public Meetings Act and operating protocols apply. It all applies. We all agree with that.
I agree with that, but I think the point that's being made is that it's evolving and that we are dedicated to being sensitive to that nature of the evolving point of it. And then, since it is an evolving area, what do you put, and do you put it in a different process? I guess that's kind of where I'm more comfortable is we know that we're dedicated to OPMA, we know that social media falls under that, and we know that it's evolving. And those are three things I think that we know, and maybe that's what we have here, but we're dedicated and committed to continually understand that evolving. And I think we should have some, although I would like to see us have some presence on Facebook and to find for the way to the board to do that and to explore that, because I think it's a very valid method for us to execute our duty as the elected officials and representatives of the community and listen to the community. So that's where I'm more like at that higher level, and then we continue to talk about it. So at the board policy level, I think we affirm the Open Public Meeting Act. We realize social media is a part of, or falls under that, and we realize it's evolving. And we're dedicated to ongoing conversations and improvement and paying attention to that. I think those are the three pieces for me at this kind of protocol level. And I'm sensitive to the going more detailed on any one item than anything else. But since this is evolving, I think we should acknowledge it and dedicate to trying to work within that evolving nature, and as things change, as we understand, that we would adjust to that. So.
And I don't think that's prescriptive. I think that's
Right, but I guess I'm saying I would be comfortable with an amendment to 21 that says we are dedicated to following Open Public Meeting Act. We acknowledge social media is subject to the Public Meeting Act, and we acknowledge it's an evolving area, and we dedicate to continually improve and collectively work towards our understanding of that. Is that, I see a head shake. Okay.
I'm making notes.
Okay. And I think this is worth our time. I know that sometimes you get into wordsmithing things, but these are the kinds of things that really do matter, and not having something that you're not uncomfortable with. But there's two valid points that are being made, and I think we all understand that. We're trying to find that language for this level of document. So I hope the other two bring that up.
Okay, so I think we have a motion for an amendment.
Yes.
I documented the language correctly. So,
And I think I made that motion. I'll say I move to amend 21 to the language that you just wrote down.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, by voice vote, it passes unanimously. So what I'd like to suggest